Port of Manila on the evening of the 20th of June, 2008. Hundreds of passengers from different provinces and cities are queuing to board the MV Princess of the Stars. Despite the weather, the passengers continue to board, hoping they'll arrive at their destination safely. More than 100 crews and about 700 passengers are now aboard the MV Princess of the Stars. The ferry will be sailing on an estimated 22-hour trip from Manila to Cebu City, navigating a route surrounded by the islands of Luzon and Visayas. But this voyage will be unlike any other. 3 days ago, several forecasting centers around the world observed a tropical depression forming near Palau, in the western part of the Pacific Ocean. The depression later developed into a Category 2 typhoon and was named Typhoon Fangshan. This typhoon, however, is headed to one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world, the Philippines. Forecasts and storm warnings were immediately made available by Pag-asa, the weather agency of the Philippines, showing the estimated wind speeds, intensity, and most importantly, the direction of the storm. The initial predictions done by Pag-asa and other forecasting centers arrived with varying but somehow close results. That Fangshan will be moving northwest through Samar and Bicol region, putting the ferry in danger. Due to this, the captain of the ship suggested to the Philippine Coast Guard that they will continue to sail as he plotted an alternate route to avoid the storm. Hours before the departure of the MV Princess of the Stars, Fangshan had made its landfall in Samar Island, which is only about 300 miles away from the port of Manila. Despite this, the Philippine Coast Guard, which is responsible for enforcing rules in Philippine waters, has granted the ferry permission to sail. The reason was that the vessel was large enough to sail along the periphery of the storm. Holding the record as the largest ferry to ever set sail in the Philippines, the MV Princess of the Stars boasts a massive height of 141 feet, equivalent to that of a 7-story building, a length of 633 feet, a weight of 23,800 tons, and a capacity of about 2,000 passengers. Ships of this size are engineered to withstand terrible weather conditions, and this ferry is no different, having rated to endure storm condition 2 winds. Now that the permission to sail has been secured, any reason for delay would be unreasonable. The captain, who has the final say on whether or not the ship will sail, has decided to proceed. Thus, at about 8 p.m., 870 people aboard the MV Princess of the Stars have set off to Cebu. A voyage that will later turn into one of the worst maritime disasters in Philippine history. As expected, passengers aboard the ferry were greeted with heavy rain and strong winds brought by Typhoon Fangshan. But as long as the typhoon maintains its projected path, everything would be under control. However, forecasts are not 100% accurate. During their monitoring, Pag-asa has observed that Fangshan is constantly moving erratically. Suddenly, just hours after the ferry's departure, Fangshan changed its course. From its predicted northwest direction to a more westward path. Due to this, Pag-asa issued a new bulletin regarding the storm's new predicted path and affected areas. Immediately, at 11:30 p.m., the Philippine Coast Guard has issued a directive prohibiting all types of ships from sailing. But with the route safe from colliding with the storm, the ferry continued to sail. However, rather than following the submitted alternate route, the ferry seemingly took a different route instead. Unbeknownst to the passengers, the ferry is now heading straight into the typhoon. Due to the strength of Fangshan, the ferry is gradually being pushed off course, sending the ferry towards shallow waters near Sibuyan Island. At about 3 kilometers from the island, the ferry was overwhelmed by enormous waves, causing the 7-story vessel to start to tilt to one side. At about 11:30 a.m., the captain sent a distress call to the Sulpicio Line's office in Manila, reporting their current situation. However, help is miles away and time is running out. Urgently, the passengers were ordered to wear life jackets. But the tilting of the ship made it hard for others to get a hold of one. Although in a state of panic, some passengers managed to unbind a number of life rafts and prepares to jump from the deck. As the ship is close to capsizing, the captain declares to abandon the ship. Unfortunately, some passengers were unable to jump. Others remained below the deck, trapped. Several people managed to hold on to the life rafts, while the others desperately swim to survive. Although the island is on site, the typhoon's strength made it impossible to swim. Massive waves pulled the passengers farther in the ocean, drifting them in different directions. Behind them, the MV Princess of the Stars. Of the 870 people aboard the MV Princess of the Stars, only 56 have survived, and 814 lives were lost. Up to this day, some of the bodies are still missing, including that of the ship's presumed dead captain. The 56 survivors were found at different locations miles away from the ship, with only a few making it to Sibuyan Island. The incident immediately sparked outrage from the public, especially from the families of the victims, swarming the offices of Sulpicio Lines, enraged as to why the ferry continued to sail despite the storm warnings. In regards to the sinking of the ferry, Sulpicio Lines claimed that it was an act of God, not engine failure, that sank the ferry. The company then filed lawsuit against Pag-asa for gross negligence and incompetence, blaming Pag-asa for a faulty and delayed weather forecasting that led the captain of the ferry to veer towards the typhoon's path. According to a Sulpicio Lines port officer in Cebu, the last message they received from the captain was, "Pag-asa is crazy. It is only guessing." However, Pag-asa claimed that the typhoon had an erratic condition. Moreover, appropriate storm warnings were already in effect at the time of the sailing. Months later, the lawsuit was dismissed by the Manila Regional Trial Court. According to the judge, Pag-asa is performing a governmental function and thus immune from the lawsuit. The judge also found no basis in the claim that wrong forecasting caused the tragedy. In the final report of the Board of Marine Inquiry, Sulpicio Lines and its captain were found liable for the tragedy. The sinking of the MV Princess of the Stars highlighted significant lapses in communication, decision-making, and accountability. It serves as a tragic reminder of the fragile balance between human judgment and the unforgiving power of nature, leaving behind a scar that continues to haunt the survivors and the families of those lost to the sea.